Well, so we have a relatively tight schedule today. We have a lot to share, and so I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. Thank you all for being here. I feel like I know most folks here, but my name is Eric Appleton, and I'm the current and outgoing president of the Adult Numeracy Network. I'm excited to welcome you to our annual meeting. Let's see here. So I guess I'm going to jump in. Actually, we're going to start with a warm up. We're just quickly. There are a couple things that we'll be doing today. If you haven't already done them, we're voting in an election for our officers of the board, and we're voting on proposed changes for our bylaws and constitution. And there are links for both of those, and we'll post those in the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to vote on either of those, you'll have a chance to vote today before the final decision is made.
Eric,
yeah.
Were you wanting to share your screen to show those QR codes?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Nice to start where we can all see each other, but it's true, we do have slides. And by the way, we are recording the session so that we can share with folks who are not able to be here today. So as you can see, we have links for the election of officers and for bylaws changes. We'll post those links in the chat so you don't have to type it all out yourself. And I'll share the agenda for the meeting here in a moment, but the first thing we're going to do is jump into a math warm-up led by Amy Vickers. So I'm going to pass it over to Amy.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, I also think I know most people here, but I'm Amy Vickers, the past president of the Adult Numeracy Network, outgoing past president. So for our warm-up activity today, I invite everyone to type into the chat. Here are my questions for you. Given these two numbers that you see, these two values, what's the same and what's different about them? What's the same about 5/10ths and 25/100ths? And what's different? Maybe in the chat you could write like S for same and or D for different, and then type your idea. And I'll just do a little bit of thank you, Amber. Good, yay. Represent different. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so while you all are getting going with that, just in case someone is here that is new to ANN, we like to do math together. And so we often do activities like this in our meetings. And just to be clear, there's no trick answer here, but we just find that as we do math in a shared way, reading each other's ideas and building off of them, that we can uncover things that we maybe didn't see at first. So please try to think about what's the same and what's different about these two numbers. Now I'm going to go in and read a little bit about what people are writing. This is way too fast for me to read back to you. So I'm seeing some math words like benchmark and rational. I'm seeing some applications like getting on the bus. Talking about differences. Of place value. So thank you for your contributions. Please keep going as I summarize this. So hopefully you saw something in the chat that surprised you or that got your attention. This is one example of an instructional routine that we would, of the many that we have on our ANN website. So please, if you like questions like this, go there and you'll find many more. And this was actually part of a presentation that I gave to Michigan adult education educators. So now we have a presentation. We have ANN has enough to share on our website that's visible to everyone, that we now have a presentation that can go to state conferences or local conferences, and we have different versions of that. And so this is part of that, and it can be adapted. So the reason I'm telling you is if you have a state or a local conference coming up, please get in touch with an ANN leader if you'd like to use one of these presentations. It can be a full hour-long presentation. That's how much content we have. So yes, woohoo for the ANN website. Thank you everyone for your participation, and I will let us move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much. So I want to officially welcome everyone to ANN's annual membership meeting. We're excited to welcome you all here. We have members from around the country and even the world who are here today. And so thank you for being here. We appreciate you making time in your busy schedules for ANN. This meeting is an opportunity for us to report out on our work over the year. We're finalizing the election of our new board officers, sharing ideas to continue to develop the network in the next year. So yeah, so we're glad you're here. Just, there's this message that Cynthia Bell helped me understand about a year ago about who ANN is, in a way, that we really are the professional organization that supports and advocates for math teachers in adult education in the United States especially, and we're looking forward to growing that network in this country and also outside of this country. And we're looking forward to inviting you to help us make this network stronger and make ourselves stronger in community with each other. So anyway, thank you for being here today. This is our agenda. So we're sharing highlights from some recent work. We're voting on officers and bylaws changes. We'll look at our financials, talk about ways that you might get involved with the work we're doing if you're not already involved. And at the end, we're going to hear about some practitioner research led by Shelley LeDuc from Connecticut. Excited about that presentation at the end. The strategic goals that you see on the right are based on our mission. They were developed at an annual board retreat in the summer of 2018. And these strategic goals have been guiding the work that we do in our committees and as a board since then. So we try and keep our mind focused on these goals and how to connect the work we're doing in committees towards the larger mission of ANN. I'm going to post in the chat here in a moment a report from this 2018 strategic plan, in case you're interested in looking at that. But I also encourage you, and it's nice to see that. Thank you, Heidi. Heidi posted that. So it's nice to see everyone being active in the chat already. I encourage you to continue the conversation as a second conversation as people are talking and presenting. You can ask questions, make suggestions, share ideas. We're going to save the chat and share it as part of the recording afterwards so that we can follow up on any resources that are shared or suggestions that are made. And I encourage anyone who's involved with ANN to respond and answer questions and share information. So yeah, so it's just a couple things to share here. Our current board of directors is here. So these are folks that are working on the board now, either in as regional reps or in these other board roles. One thing to point out is that there are some roles that have an asterisk next to them, and that means that they are presidential appointments. This is allowed by our bylaws that allows the president to appoint people into additional roles that are not specifically outlined in the bylaws. So for example, historian, the practitioner research coordinator, and the equity officer are currently presidential appointments. We've changed the process a little bit to make it more transparent and collaborative, and so that it's not really, it hasn't really just been my decision to appoint people. We've used the nominating committee as a process to consider people who put their names forward, and then we put the decision before the board in a consensus process. But it's still, I guess, a presidential appointment technically. And so you can see the folks who are, their role is ending in June 2022. Those are folks those are positions that are up for election now. Let's see here. We will put in the chat, by the way, links to the website with contact information for any of those folks if you want to contact people directly. These are our state representatives currently. And as you can see that we don't have state representatives for every state. So if your state isn't represented, you might consider getting involved as a state rep, or you might know somebody who might be interested in being a state rep for any states that are not represented. We also have a number of ANN members who are serving as committee chairs who are not currently on the board. So I think that we have 2 ANN members who are committee chairs but are not on the board. And then some board members are also serving as chairs or board liaisons. Let's see here. I think, Heidi, you'll correct me if I'm off track here, but I think the next thing I want to talk about is the proposed bylaws changes. So we sent out an email about this, but in case you haven't had a chance to see that, or if, it's just a bit of a verbal explanation of what's being proposed. There are a few items that we're suggesting to be changed. So as I said, the equity officer position is currently a presidential appointment. Just a little bit of history on that. In the May 2021 quarterly board meeting last year, the ANN board unanimously, because we're using a consensus model, we unanimously approved the proposal from the Racial Equity and Math Education Committee to create a board position of an equity officer by presidential appointment. And then in the annual meeting, last year, we announced the presidential appointment of the new equity officer. It's not an elected position currently because it's not in the bylaws. The proposed bylaws change would add the role so that there would be elections in odd years along with the secretary, webmaster, and CTM rep and regional reps from Midwest and West. The first election for the new equity officer role would be in 2023. The rationale from the original proposal last year was this is directly from the proposal from the Racial Equity and Math Education Committee. The idea that many ANN members are concerned with equity in their classrooms and in their personal and professional lives, and we need somebody who will be a resource for ANN members who want to connect with other members to create support for students and teachers around equity concerns. And we also need someone to support our own growth as we continue to work towards being a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable organization. So that's the rationale. And it was always the idea from the beginning that ideally this position would be an elected role in the bylaws, but we needed a year to establish the role, and we're very thankful that Graciano Peterson joined the board in November of 2021 and has been working as the equity officer. And Graciano has helped us define the role, and develop the language for the bylaws based on his own experience and what seemed reasonable and appropriate given his experience in the position. So we're very thankful for that. I believe the equity officer role helps us move forward in our strategic goals, including becoming a more equitable organization. Currently, Graziano is conducting an ANN equity impact assessment with a survey of board members. And so this, establishing the equity officer as an elected position means that the position can be accountable to our membership, like other elected roles. So that's just an explanation of the proposed change for the equity officer. The other changes are sort of minor, I'd say, but the first one is just changing the start date for new board members. Currently in the bylaws, it says that they start their role immediately following the election, so which would be tomorrow, I guess. But we're proposing that changes to July 1st. That we're using that as the beginning of our fiscal year, and that would give the annual meeting has been scheduled the last few years in June, and it feels an appropriate time to do the annual meeting, and then this would give us a few weeks for a transition and to prepare for a new board. And then there's a small change in following the webmaster role that basically just says that the webmaster should share information with the next person who comes in for that role. It's sort of boilerplate language that was missing in that role. We'll post a link to I think it's already there. The bylaws vote is in the chat. So if you click on that, you can read the specific text in the proposed bylaws changes, and you can vote as well. Are there any questions or comments about the proposed bylaws changes? Well, if there are, please feel free to speak up. You can unmute,
well,
or you could, yeah, go ahead.
I'm Maya, and I'm writing my answer right here. I haven't finished. I think of the equity officer. When I think of an equity officer, this set has a lot of responsibility, and you don't want to be able to vote people out just because somebody, it shouldn't be that way. It has a lot of responsibility. It should be more like a judge or a teacher with tenure. You can't just get rid of tenured teachers if for any reason. Like in New York, you have to have, I think there are 5 reasons. And so that when they try to get rid of a teacher, they try to fit one is corporal punishment. And for example, the New York City Board of Education tried to fit a woman who was following regulations and using the language that she was required to use for teaching sex education, and she was accused of corporal punishment. Of course, that didn't fly, and she got some settlement from that. So that's what I'm going to write. I'll get.
So just to clarify, Maya, is this an argument for it not to be an elected position, for it to be an appointment?
That's right. It shouldn't. I don't think it should be an elected position, but you should have like a, what reasons would this person have to leave? Why would this person? I mean, I don't even think it should be up to a president. I just think if you feel that this person can do the job and they're doing the job, they're not going off on their own tangent, then I think it shouldn't. I don't think it should be elected. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Maya. I appreciate the feedback.
I'll just put that down.
Thank you.
I entered it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions before we move on? You will have time to vote for. We'll let you know when that deadline's coming in the next few minutes.
Okay, I think that's my cue.
Mm-hmm.
So to segue out of the changes that we were making to the bylaws, some of them were related to elections, like we were just talking about with the equity officer. And I just wanted to speak to what the nominating committee has been up to. Nominating committee consists of the president-elect, which is me. I'm Heidi Schuler-Jones, by the way. It also, Lakshmi Nayak has agreed to co-chair that with me, and Eric Appleton has also been a part of that. So it's been a 3-person nominating committee. And for the last couple of years, we've been trying to streamline the election process for ANN, which my experience coming into it was about, it was really about soliciting anyone to run for positions. We were constantly seeking kind of from the same pool of people, who was available, who was willing to serve, who was willing to stay on the position. And the 3 of us have really spent the last, feels like 3 years actually, of trying to create a system that was more transparent and more open to all members. And so it would widen our circle, but also give us a really concrete system for electing officers, so that we became a lot more diverse, hopefully, in the process. So one of the ways that we did that was to create a system and a procedure. And we've been working on fine tuning that. And Lakshmi will share a little bit about that in a moment. The other thing we tried back on August 16th of last year was an open house. And it was an opportunity for us to invite all ANN members to come meet the existing board members for the offices that are up for election right now. And it was something we decided, what have we got to lose? Let's just open this up and let's see what conversations come out of it and who we might meet. And it was a really great experience because it introduced us to some people who otherwise, I think, might not have wandered in to ask some of the questions that are always what people want to know about being on a board. How much time is it going to take? What's the work that's involved? Do I do this every week? Is it going to be, a huge time commitment? And so this was a way for us to get introduced to people, for them to ask those questions, to ask the people who are working in that position right now, and not feel like you're intruding on a position that is belonging to a person. None of us owns our positions. We all are volunteering our time for one thing, but we're also seeking to grow the organization. And I think that's the mindset that was really important to hear in that open house. And that was, everyone is here because we love the Adult Numeracy Network and we're supporting the mission as a whole. And so it might mean there is a better person to fill this role, and maybe my gifts and talents are better used someplace else. So it gave us a starting point. It wasn't perfect, and we certainly want to see what we can do to move it forward, but I think it was the right step forward to help us expand the election process. And it also introduced us to some more leaders who we were able to connect with committees whose, those individuals had specific interests. They really wanted to get involved. They weren't quite ready to join the board or serve in a position, but they wanted to do more. And so committees started to grow out of that. And I hope we can keep doing that. And before I move on to more of the nitty-gritty part of the nominating process, I want to definitely thank Lakshmi and Eric, but especially Lakshmi, for agreeing to co-chair this committee. It's still very new, and she's been such an insightful person in the onboarding of this new process, and I really appreciate her input. It's been very, very helpful to have her guidance, and she's been instrumental in shaping some of these changes that I invite her now to share a little bit about. And then Lakshmi, when you finish, I'll summarize where we did things next.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Heidi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just double checking. Okay, good. Well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to co-chairing with you this next year. So a little bit more on what we did. We took feedback from candidates from last year, but Heidi mentioned we'd also been kind of trying to refine and tune this process for the last few years, really. So we took feedback, our own feedback and candidates' feedback on what worked and didn't work with this whole process. And this year really tried to think about how to give people some choice while not making it overwhelming, and also trying to make the process as fair and equitable as possible. So we ended up this year with instead of there being an option for a video or not a video, we said, okay, everybody's going to have a video, but it will be part of the Zoom when we meet. And by now everybody's used to meeting on Zoom. So it won't be about whether you know how to make a video or you're used to the camera or any of those things. And then we would edit the video afterwards if needed. And similarly, we'll ask you some questions that you can submit in writing, and you can choose from whichever, from this handful of questions that we'll ask. And then we will take that and create a profile, which we then did, so that everybody's profile overall was the same format, but let each person shine through in what their strengths were and what they were could bring to the position that they were applying for. So, and finally, this year, we actually got unsolicited feedback from a few participants, applicants, that this was a good process. So I'm like, okay, this is working. This is really good. So I want to actually remind everybody now to vote, because as we head into the financial report and a few other things, this is the last 10 or 15 minutes that you can vote. All right, back to you, Heidi.
Thanks, Lakshmi. And if the links haven't been dropped in the chat, because I haven't been watching it, if somebody could take those 2 tiny URLs and drop them, that would be great. And then just never to miss an opportunity to invite people to the table. If you're interested in running for a board position, we do have elections every spring. We are potentially looking at that open house, maybe moving it from the summer to closer to the election, to maybe have more time to introduce people to the positions, but keep an eye out for that. All the positions hold 2-year terms, with half the board being elected every other spring. So the officers being elected right now won't be up for election again until 2 years from now, in the next even year. And just as I think this was a really important thing we learned as a nominating committee, is that officers midway through a term might decide they want to switch up. They want to run for an office that happens during the middle of their term, and they were feeling stuck. And so we just want to reiterate, we invite your time and talents to whatever position you feel is appropriate for you, even if it's midterm. That's why we have presidential appointments. We want to be able to fill the need with the people who are willing and able to serve and have that best skill set to do so at that time. So if you're running or a part of an office already, and you decide there's another position you'd like to be a part of, please don't hesitate to run for those. And then just so you're aware, the election process does end today. It started on May 3rd. We announced the election on the website, and then on May 4th, we sent an email out to all ANN members, and it's been open. Both of those have been open. Today it culminates the entire election process that we've been working on really since last August. The process culminates today. The election itself started on May 3rd, and we combine those absentee ballots, which is kind of our early voting version, and today's in-person election day. We combine all of those, and we'll have the results in a few minutes. After the next slide, after the financial report, the election will close. So the very next slide is your last chance to vote, and then we'll close it out and we'll reveal the results. So any questions that I can answer for the nominating committee? Great. Thank you so much.
Hi, folks. My name is Sarah Lomberglou. I'm the current treasurer and up for re-election this cycle. So I'm just showing you here the financial report for the last fiscal year. I'm not going to talk through all the details, just give you an overview. What you see here is the amount that we budgeted for spending in fiscal year 21, which is the fiscal year that I always get confused about which fiscal year is which, but I feel like I didn't update that. Our amount budgeted was $5,951.60, and you can see our spending outlined by budget category below. And the income in fiscal year 22, which is the fiscal year that's just coming to an end, was $3,559.75 plus whatever dues come in June, and that will be the income that's used to fund fiscal year 23. So we did come in under budget. We also budgeted more than we took in to fund that year, and that's been our process for the past few years, because we're working to grow the organization. In terms of our account balance, like, we're okay. We have plenty of cushion there. And I'm happy to go through details with anybody who has questions or wants to, if you want to ask questions now, or if you want to contact me later. If you look at the bottom, our income came from dues. It came from our rebate from the COABE pre-conference, the Teaching and Learning Institute, and we had also a very small amount of income this year from donations. So I'm gonna, Eric, can you go to the next slide? We can come back to this one if people want to see it again, but on the next slide, just to be really clear, we are officially a nonprofit organization. That happened this year. It was a lot of hard work to get through that process, but that means that now we can fundraise and we can collect donations, and they are tax deductible. So if you are inspired to donate toward the work of ANN, you can do so on the website. So under the organization tab, look for the link to donate to ANN, or if you're like super inspired, you can use that QR code that's on the screen and make a donation right now. And that's about all I have to say about the finances, but I do want to give a minute for questions. And if anybody wants to go back to that previous slide, we can do that too.
Oh, hi, I'm Maggie. I'm curious about rebate. What does that mean, rebate from COABE?
So when we put on the pre-conference at COABE, people pay COABE to attend that, and some of that money comes back to us. So we get a certain percentage of every registration, and that's the COABE rebate. So the more people we get to pre-conference, the more money we take in from that. And we did pretty well this year because we ran an in-person and a virtual pre-conference. Our best ever was in New Orleans, and that set a pretty high bar that we're going to continue to try to reach for.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And again, you can find my contact information on the board page on the website. So if anybody wants to get into specifics, or you have questions about how things work, like we're all in favor of transparency, and you're welcome to contact me.
I'll just add on to that. One of the things that we haven't necessarily done the last couple of years is to provide scholarships to the ANN Teaching and Learning Institute, which is the COABE pre-conference. So sometimes people are wondering what they can do to support ANN. If you wanted to make a donation, for example, and you wanted to earmark it for a scholarship for pre-conference, that's a wonderful thing to offer. It's also something that the past couple of years we haven't been able to necessarily fund in our budget because of COVID, and we weren't able to generate as many new members from that. So just keeping in mind, if you're looking for a place to donate and tax deductible, that's a great thing to do, is to sponsor someone to go to a full or a half-day PD session with us.
I have a quick question about the summer board meeting 0. Is it in there as a line item because there used to be a summer board? You mean pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, it was like an in-person meeting that had expenses, and now it isn't?
Yeah, that's right. So we haven't had a summer board meeting the past few years, but it is something that's still in the budget as something that might potentially happen. I believe that the amount that was budgeted was around $400 in the past, and it was for things like food and general expenses that we needed for the board. All the board members actually did pay their own transportation and lodging for the summer board meeting. So it wasn't a huge expense.
Thanks.
What happened?
Okay, so thank you, Sarah. So I am moving on to we're going to share the election results. So I think, Lakshmi, am I passing this to you?
I was muted, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm contested, so it's not exactly a surprise, but it's still a really wonderful, wonderful result. I think 36 people have voted by now. That now, well, from tomorrow onwards, I guess, Eric, you will now be the past president, and Heidi will become the president, and Dee will be the president-elect. And then Sarah Lonberg-Lou will continue as treasurer. Patricia Helmuth will continue as newsletter editor. And we will welcome Maggie Brown to be Region 1 rep for the Northeast. Welcome, Maggie. And Adrienne Fontenot will continue as Region 2 rep for the South. And then is this when I should mention what next year's open positions are?
Sure.
Yes, so
Yes.
This time next year, so in June 2023, the open positions will be, so consider this for next spring if you want to apply. NCTM representative, currently Cynthia Bell. Secretary, I think that's currently Brooke Estes. Regional rep for Midwest, Region 3, and regional rep for the West, Region 4, and the webmaster. So those are all going to be up for election next year.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I'd also like to just share the results of the bylaws vote. We had 35 people voting. The question, the way it was posed was that you can indicate whether you support all proposed edits, or you don't support any of the proposed edits, or you support some of the proposed edits but not others. It looks like maybe almost everyone, yeah, let's say 34 out of 35 supported all proposed edits. And there was one response not supporting the addition of the equity officer. But this isn't a consensus vote here, so I think this officially bylaws changes pass. So thank you all for participating in this process. We appreciate this. I think the bylaws have been extremely well written originally, and I think have been improved over time and adjusted to the way we organize our work currently. And I think it's helpful to be able to complete that process with participation of members. So thank you so much for being part of this.
So Eric, does that mean that the official board positions, new people start July 1 then? So you're at the helm for 2 more weeks, Eric. Just saying.
Yeah, Dee's saying the same thing in the chat. So I failed to consider that part. So yes, thank you. So yeah, I think that means officially as of now the bylaws are changed, and we'll update the website to show the updated bylaws. And I'm going to pass this to Amy.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, everyone. I have to calm down my wanting to type happy things in the chat and focus. Okay, so a conversation that has happened within ANN since I became a leader in ANN is that the people, we have this concern that the people who are getting the most out of their membership are people on the board, because what happened is that we were the ones that got to be all meeting each other. We got to be in meetings together and solving interesting problems together. And so we were the ones that were getting the most out of the experience. And so in our efforts to distribute the fun, distribute the growth a little bit, we now have committees. And I think I'm very encouraged by the way that the committees give more of those opportunities to more people, and allow people to work in areas either of strength or areas where they want to learn more. So first, I'm just very happy to say that we have committees now. And if you are on this call and you are not on a committee, let me look at you. I highly encourage you to listen to the updates that we're about to give and consider if there's a committee that you may want to be a part of. Because again, one level of benefiting from the Adult Numeracy Network is to take in the information that we're putting out there. Be reading our website, reading the Math Practitioner, but really, it is my experience that you can find the highest value with ANN by being involved in some way. So given that background, I just want us to go through the list of committees, and I asked someone from each committee to prepare just 2 sentences. Something I'm asking each committee to share something that an accomplishment from the past year, and then something that you're looking forward to in the future, in this coming year. So we'll just go down the columns. And so just unmute yourself when it's your turn. And know that if you are interested in one of these committees, that the contact information is on the website for each of them. There's the email address. So actually, let me just pause. Are there any questions about committees before we start doing quick reports? If you think of one, feel free to type it in the chat. Okay, so please just unmute yourself when it's your turn. So Math Practitioner Committee, what have you been up to?
Hi. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Patricia, the editor of the Math Practitioner. And this past year, we've onboarded a new chairperson and some new committee members. We've come up with some ideas for recurring features in the newsletter. And at our next meeting, we're going to be talking about how we can expand our network of contributors to the newsletter through outreach, and we're going to be forming subcommittees to that end. So that's what we're looking forward to do.
Thank you, Patricia. How about the Outreach Committee? Outreach support and member welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valencia Izendu. Sorry I'm not on camera, but today is dress rehearsal day, so it's crazy over here. In the last year, we've successfully done a scavenger hunt in the newspaper, and we also held regional meetings. This year, we're focusing on expanding ANN's outreach, so reaching out to state organizations so that we can keep everyone updated on state conferences and hopefully get ANN leaders or other ANN membership to participate in those conferences and get the word out about ANN. And we also have a new member meeting coming up on June 9th. So if you are available, please attend. It is on the calendar on the ANN website.
Thank you, Valencia. How about Teaching and Learning Institute?
So the Teaching and Learning Institute Planning Committee has 3 subgroups: workshop planning, outreach, and logistics. And the small teams put together 2 institutes this year for COABE, a half-day virtual and a whole day, full day in person in Seattle on April 10th, which was a huge undertaking to deliver in 2 different spaces with the team that we had, and they just did an outstanding job. Very, very excited how well it went. And one thing we're looking forward to doing in the next year is to consider how to take all that work we put into planning and extending that through the year. So maybe a way to take the virtual half-day session and tease out more learning opportunities through the ANN Zoom account and offer that to members beyond COABE and potentially reach more people with all the work that we put into those and do some smaller group sessions, maybe in the summer or fall.
Thank you, Heidi. Good idea. I agree that all that pre-conference institute work should be used over more than one day. I hope that happens. I hope we can find a way to make that happen. So I'm next for the ANN paper on standardized testing. So the thing that we accomplished last year is that we made this group that thought we should write a paper on standardized testing. As the professional leaders in adult numeracy, and given that standardized tests are part of the reality of adult education programming, we determined that it was our job to offer some guidance as to test writers and maybe perhaps programs choosing tests about what perhaps could be possible around the way that we are assessing learning. And this is a big task, but we just wanted to get started on it. So that's our accomplishment, is that we made this, that we created this group, and that we have started some analysis work looking at test questions. And then what I'm looking forward to for the next year is that we can have some draft ready regarding our suggestions for standardized testing. So you will perhaps notice on the screen that this is an ad hoc group. And I also want to do a little side note here to invite others to make an ad hoc group if there is some pressing need around adult numeracy that you feel is not being addressed by the existing committees. You know, so we're a network, right? We're all the people of the network are contributing to adult numeracy. That's our model. And so just know that if there is a concern that you have, and you are able to get a few people together to move forward in some way, or ask questions, or bring attention to that concern, then please feel invited to do that. It's, you know, you don't have to ask. Don't worry, it's not about trying to fit into the structure. It's about make that group, and then just tell someone so we can get the word out and invite others. And so what we'll do is we'll just see how this group addresses its task, and then we'll see, like, should this be a committee or not, but we're going to just work on our one goal first. So please see this as an invitation to make any group that you feel would be helpful. Okay, so next column, racial equity in math education.
Hi again. So I co-chair the Racial Equity in Math Education Committee with Mark Truszkowski. And one thing that we didn't put in our little spiel, but I want to say, is that we are looking for somebody to step up and take over the chair of this committee. It doesn't need to be the two of us, and we'd be super thrilled to have somebody from the membership step up in that regard. The Racial Equity Committee has been holding monthly meetings, and it's a place for teachers to come together to learn about the intersection of racism and math teaching and learning. And one accomplishment that we're super proud of is just the number of people who've been showing up. We've been expanding our membership. It's clear that this is something that is important to a lot of people in ANN. We had 12 people at our last meeting, which was fantastic. We have a seasonal community series focused on math for identity and belonging, which has had some really great participation. And that's where we've been exploring what rehumanizing math looks like and feels like for ourselves and for our students. It ran twice in the past year. One was called Measuring a Meaningful Place, and the other was called Representing Data Creatively. So that's something that we're looking forward to continuing. And also we are looking forward in the next year just to continuing to grow our own learning and work working on figuring out how to bring that work into the world beyond our committee meetings. So please come.
Thank you, Sarah. How about the website committee? Cynthia, it doesn't look like you're muted, but I can't hear you. So I'm going to go to the next person while you work on your tech. All right. Okay. So Eric, could you please let us know about the numeracy strand at COABE?
Sure, thank you. So the COABE Numeracy Strand Committee is the, ANN is the strand partner for COABE, which means that we review proposals for sessions at COABE in the math and numeracy strand. And so we have a committee that meets in the fall, usually starting around September, and then finishing the work when COABE runs. So it's sort of half a year. And so last year we figured out a process for reviewing proposals that feels fair to us. Most of the members, other than the chair, don't see the names of the people. They see the descriptions and the titles. And we have a rubric, the COABE rubric we use, but we also use ANN's professional development principles. We have a rubric that we developed out of that to assess proposals. And so, yeah, we'll be looking for new people to be part of that committee. If anyone is interested in the fall, it's a way to see behind the scenes and how decisions are made. And we're, one of our main goals is encouraging new voices while maintaining the quality and commitment to conceptual understanding and engagement of teachers as learners, and interactive sessions. We're not interested in sessions where people are just being talked at. So we have a point of view, but we also want to bring new people into the club. So that's sort of the twin goals that we've been working on.
Thank you, Eric. Cynthia, shall we try again?
I think it works now. I tested my audio.
Yep. Yes.
Hi, one more time. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cynthia Bell. I am a part of the website committee, not the webmaster. And so I'm going to just read what Mark wrote for me to say for everyone. We've been doing a lot of work on the website, particularly around making the homepage more active, which hopefully you all have noticed, and designing resources for members to connect with, especially the instructional routines page, where Mark and I put a lot of work into that, and trying to make the website our goal, like our little motto for the website committee is make the ANN website a page that all instructors want to bookmark. So that's what we've been trying to do with the resources that are available, the access to information on the homepage, the events, the information around all of the PD that ANN is doing, et cetera. And for the next year, we are hoping and looking forward to the possibility of expanding our committee, which is currently 2. And we would love for it to be more than 2. And you do not need website experience, or, it's okay if you don't know how to make your own website or anything like that. We're really just looking for people who have an interest in helping to shape this outward facing extension of ANN, and can come and bring inspiring ideas that we can share on the website to help move ANN forward. And also I'd like to add, in my capacity as the NCL rep, NCL had their annual member and board meeting last week. And I reported out what ANN has been doing in regards of the learning circles as well as the website. And all of the members were really interested in the website and the information that is on the website. So the website's a really good tool that Anne has to promote adult numeracy, as well as to expand our membership body. So all of the members in NCL were really interested in the website and sharing that information with their membership bodies. So that is it for the website committee.
Thank you, Cynthia. And then we've heard from the nominating committee. Is there anything, Lakshmi or Heidi, that you would like to add?
I don't have anything else to add.
All right, thank you. Thanks committees. And again, please hear this as a warm invitation to join, so that you can maximize your experience with ANN. And I again, using my full privileges as past president, I just want to do, I'm thinking of a big picture comment that I connecting past and future. As I said in the chat, as I noted in the chat, everyone has been working very hard these past couple of years, and I'm acknowledging that and saying I'm so happy of how we are now. And in particular, the current leaders are doing such a good job, in my view, of being very intentional and careful as we make processes so that we can be more inclusive. And every time it gets busy and I want to take a shortcut, or someone wants to take a shortcut, there's always someone that pulls us back and say, no, we have to, we made this process, we thought really hard about it. We need to adhere to our process. And then, like, so all this good growth that you're seeing is from that adherence. So I really just want to keep encouraging everyone to do that, and thank you every time that you kind of resist that busyness and need to solve things quickly, and that you continue to take your time. We take our time to do things well. And another part of that story is, as I see founding members here, I am always so encouraged to see that our mission is spot on. You know, right now in 2022, our ANN mission is spot on, and I can go back to it, and the principles, right? The ANN PD professional development principles that just came up, and teaching and learning. You know, those principles keep being a place where we can focus. And that also, it shows the strength of the organization. So I just need to say those things as my outgoing words. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, so we're getting close to our presentation in practitioner research, but before we do that, just want to, so I guess continue what Amy was saying in some ways, is encourage folks who have, or if you showed up here today, it means you really have an interest in ANN, and many of us, we know each other and are already involved, but there are some folks that are just, beginning to get involved, and we just encourage you to find your place here, and think about, how you might get more involved, but also, is there somebody else do you have a colleague, a friend, someone else who could make use of the network and then contribute their expertise and their energy as well. So I guess think about what you've heard today. Is there anything that you heard that was of interest that you would like to know more about? How would you like to be involved? Because we need your help guiding the organization and continuing to make it responsive to the needs of students and teachers in adult education. So we developed this very brief, it really is brief, interest form. Thank you, Heidi, for posting it. so that if you want to act on this, it's just basically you're not signing in blood, but you're just letting us know that that there's something you're interested in, and then we'll follow up with you. So if there's a particular committee that you want more information about, or if you want to know something else, this is an opportunity to ask questions, and then just tell us how you want to be involved. So please fill out that form if you're not already connected with us. Maggie asked a question about the newsletter committee, and maybe somebody could respond in the chat, and then if we have time, we'll do that verbally as well. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Rebecca Strom, who's the practitioner research chair. But actually, before we do that, I'm wondering if we could do a quick group photo.
Yes.
Not so. If you're able to turn on your camera, please do. If you can't, we understand. I think Brooke is going to take a quick screenshot, right? Just of everybody here, so we have a group photo.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure that you're not frowning. I was trying to capture one earlier and everybody was like doing something. So I'm going to do that in 3, 2, 1. All right, looks good. Let me try one more time, actually. So one more time, drinks aside, faces, everybody smile. Okay, and all right, looks good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think, Rebecca, I'm passing it to you to introduce Shelley, is that right?
Yes, so I'm just going to drop a quick link in about it's an older flyer we haven't updated since before COVID about practitioner research, if it's new to you. It's an opportunity to grow the field with authentic research on how our adults are learning math instead of taking K-12 information and always trying to adjust it to us. We're just trying to support our instructors to do this in the classroom and share back what they're learning. And so this year, our practitioner research was done by Shelley Leduc, and I would love for her to share that with you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Oh, perfect. I've been having trouble with my mic. Okay. Can you put the slides up, please? Before we get started, I'm Shelley Leduc. I work for EastCon in Connecticut. And I've done a little research. I was convinced by the team to go through with it. And if you could, into the chat, I'm just wondering how many of you are actually classroom teachers currently. So if you could put into the chat either a T, if you're currently a teacher, even in a small part of your time, or put the job title that you have. That way I know what's happening. Very good. Okay. I'll continue to keep an eye on those. Also, if anybody has any questions, please throw those into the chat as well while we're going along. And can somebody, the slides up that I shared? Thank you. Very good. So a lot of teachers and then more PD people, so that's good. Thank you very much. Can other people see the slides? Because I still see Eric has started. Oh, here we go. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Is it working?
Okay.
I'm having an issue right now. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yep. Nope. I can see it now. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you. And my chat has. Okay, I think I can see the screen and my chat. Okay, so the question that I had was when I was doing my research was, can spatial reasoning skills improve when you're studying them in an online environment? So if you could go to the next slide. And here is my spoiler alert. There's a rectangle on the screen. Can other people see that, like blocking the slide? Yeah.
I think
Yes,
Eric,
I
if you,
can see it.
oh, there it went away. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please.
Forgive me, my computer is giving me issues right now.
That's okay. If
Shelley,
you
would you
want to
wanna-
share,
do you
allow
wanna
me
just
to
share
share
your
and I can
screen?
share. Sure. Give me a second. Isn't it great that we had COVID and now we all know how to do this? Only the second part is real. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, so here is the question. Here is the spoiler alert. We can absolutely study spatial reasoning in an online environment. And so a couple of things that I'm gonna just talk about today. Before I do that, I wanna find my chat again because my chat is off the screen. If somebody could just yell if there's a question in the chat, that would be really super. Okay, so two things I want to talk about: why teach spatial reasoning, and then how do you teach spatial reasoning. And just starting with the big picture here about why teach spatial reasoning. And I'm actually going to stop my share right now real quick because I did not share my sound. I wish that was a default that you could turn on. Yeah. All right, so here you can see real quick, this is 100% related to spatial reasoning with adults. If you want to look at the title up here, this is BYU Origami in Space, and they're talking about solar arrays. So this is just maybe like 40 seconds or so, or 50 seconds of a video that is, I'm not going to show the whole video, but I just want you to have an idea from the really, really universal size, big picture, universe size, big picture of why we're doing this.
Environments like the environment of space.
Origami helps inspire new ways of looking at how mechanisms can work or how we can approach solutions to problems.
It's very expensive, very difficult to get things into space. And the nice thing with a lot of origami is you can make it very compact for launch, and as you get into space, you can deploy and be very large.
I'm working on an origami-inspired deployable solar array for spacecraft. The panel hanging behind me is the 20th scale prototype of this 25-meter array system. By using origami principles, we can get a much larger array into space by stowing it compactly during launch and then opening it up once we're in space.
So that is where I start with my class, talking about spatial reasoning. And here, these are the 16 career pathways. You may recognize them. And what I want you to do right now real quick is just into the chat, if you could, if I can find it. If you want to choose one of these that you think is not as related to spatial reasoning, maybe as the others are not really associated with spatial reasoning. So pick one of the 16, as I said, maybe finance. Maybe you think that's not, it's not like manufacturing. So choose one that you think is not necessarily related with spatial reasoning, put it into the chat with kind of an idea of how spatial reasoning might actually be related to that career path. And Rebecca, I see your note, thank you. Okay, so we have distribution, packing containers in centers, marketing products on the shelves, definitely spatial reasoning. What else do you think? Big parties, graphic design, paying for space, that's a huge one. Yep, business management, you wouldn't necessarily think it'd be so related. Continue to fill those in. Finance and gold bars, that's a really good for finance. I was thinking of a bell curve graph or some kind of graph. What does this mean? This is two-dimensional information that's representing a real thing. That's how big are the piles of money, smart buildings. Okay, so you guys are right on top of this, as I knew. Go ahead and continue to put those into the chat. So we're going to go to the next slide here. Oh, back. Student work. So let me just give you a little bit of background, and hopefully you are all going to read the research and you'll see the whole story. But I was, EastCon in Connecticut was paid to create a remediation class for a manufacturing pipeline that we have here that's started by Electric, and they make submarines for the government. So Electric Boat needed a lot of people working for them. They set up all this training, and they needed a way to onboard them to the free training that was provided. So people had to take a test. If they didn't do so well on the test, they had a remediation class that they had to do, and that's where I come in. I wrote that class on behalf of EastCon for the state of Connecticut for the pipeline. And they're studying three things: ruler reading, which seems kind of easy and everybody does pretty well on, spatial reasoning, as we know, which is this, and then shop math, which is basically basic math operations, but looking at a blueprint. So how long is this part, etc. So the students were students who had not gotten the required score on the onboarding test for the remediation, for the pipeline. So they were all adults, and these are some of the pictures of their work that they did during the class. And this is, photographs of student work. So geometric transformations is part of spatial reasoning. Composite figures is part of spatial reasoning. Making the jump from 2D to 3D, that's a really big part of spatial reasoning, especially studying spatial reasoning. So these are some examples of things that I ask students to do to show me something in 2D and then 3D. Does someone have a question? I heard a mic. Just gonna check. Okay, perfect. All right. Here is another one, and let's stop just briefly and look at this one. So the words are small and a little bit blurry, but this says which solid shape can be made from the net. So there was a net here, which is the drawing of the six-sided figure that's before you fold it up and glue it together. And this student has actually cut it out as I asked them to, colored these forms. So here we have an actual two-dimensional photograph of a three-dimensional figure, a three-dimensional model. Which of these could be a drawing of this? Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody know? This is just a photograph of the model that the student made. Which of these could it be? Maybe the top one with the green top? Any of them? Bottom right? No? Oops, sorry. Thinking of color, then one that has a purple top. This one is the one that has the purple top. Bottom left. Okay, so this is one of the things that we go over in the class. And actually, the people that said it could be any of them, those people are right, because we can only see three of these sides. We can only see three of these sides. So any of these could be a reverse the reverse picture of this 3D model. If you had this 3D model in your hand, though, you would see that the one that the student has made is this bottom right one right here. We can see the purple, we can see the orange, and one of these two backsides would be blue. So this is one of the things that we do, that I did in this class. Any other? There's so many faces we can't see. So yeah. So oops. Any other comments about this right here? All right. Go ahead and keep them coming in the chat. This was an optional assignment right here, and I think this one is my favorite picture, actually, about the research that I did. And one of the things that I really like, I'm not great with spatial reasoning, and so I didn't know when they asked me to teach spatial reasoning. I didn't know how to teach spatial reasoning, but there are so many different resources that I found in this. In the research that I did to prepare for the class. This picture is probably my favorite one right here. Everybody does spatial reasoning. Maybe you're not paying attention, or maybe you're not, or maybe people aren't paying attention or aren't sure what spatial reasoning is. But this right here was a picture. I just had a student take a picture of spatial reasoning that you do in your own house every day. And then this is what I got. And of course, this is, the description of somebody who's not sure about spatial reasoning. This is not how you would put these two items in a bag. That's not how you would arrange them. So, this, one of the fun things about teaching spatial reasoning is that it's everywhere, and people are better at it than they think they are. So that's a really, really good thing for homework like that. And I'm just gonna look at the chat again. Yes. And the other picture, this is a spatial reasoning related shop math question. So we do all the three topics at the same time: ruler reading, shop math, and spatial reasoning. And there's no sense in talking about length. See, this person's spelling is not their forte. Length, width, and height. There's no sense in talking about those three things if the person has no spatial reasoning sense and can't picture in their head that this is a three-dimensional object that's being represented two-dimensionally. So the spatial reasoning that I taught was really fun and interesting. I have a video here. It's 3:19. I was told I have till 3:25, and this is a 3-minute video, so I am going to show this. This is really, I showed this to my class. I think this is really super. She talks about women here, that women are underrepresented in the sciences and math, and we could really expand women to socioeconomic people that are at lower levels, people of color who don't have access to these materials, these toys, the economic advantages that other people do. I'm just going to play this and let this speak for me for the last minutes.
I'm Cheryl Sorby. I'm a professor of engineering education at the University of Cincinnati. I started my engineering studies many years ago. I was a straight A student in high school, and when I got into engineering and took my very first engineering course, it was the first time I had struggled with an academic subject before, and I nearly left engineering as a result. 3D spatial skills are important to success in STEM fields, in particular in engineering and mathematics. My problem was that I had poor 3D spatial visualization skills. The most underutilized natural resource in the world is women. Women are much more likely to have underdeveloped spatial skills compared to men. We believe that this is part of the puzzle in why we have such underrepresentation of women in STEM. This is what I've been working on for the past 27 years. One of the important aspects in developing your 3D spatial skills is in sketching with handheld objects. I developed a course in course materials. We offered a course to first-year engineering students, and we found that the course helped them to improve their 3D spatial skills. They also got better grades in most of their STEM subjects. The graduation rate for women with weak spatial skills was about 47%. For the women who initially had weak spatial skills, who went through the spatial skills training, their graduation rate was about 77%. We've also done studies with the materials at the 7th grade level. We found that the spatial skills training had a positive impact on the performance of girls on their standardized math tests in 8th grade. We're in the process now of conducting a large randomized control trial study across the country. We have schools participating. Many teachers struggle with their spatial skills, and so they're not as confident teaching it the first time. When the teachers were teaching the curriculum for the second time, then we did start to see significant gains in spatial skills. In the first bar, we see a baseline year where they weren't doing any spatial skills instruction, and then the next 2 bars show the gains the first time they taught the curriculum and the second time they taught the curriculum. Spatial skills can be developed. Just because women might start out with weaker spatial skills, it doesn't mean that forever they're going to have weaker spatial skills. We think it's something that should be specifically taught and developed in our young students, but in particular in our girls.
That was Cheryl Sorby. I really love that video. It demonstrates a lot of the that I do that I did in the class that contributed to the development of my students' online, my students' spatial reasoning skills. To close up, I said I was going to talk about 2 things: why teach spatial reasoning and how to teach it. I think I taught you why if you didn't already know, which was probably likely, and read my paper is how you're going to learn how to teach spatial reasoning, because you'll be able to see what I did, more background and more information. I always think that the why is in situations like this. The how you can kind of get to, but the why is what always grabs me. So if you read my paper, you'll see the how. Read a little bit more about Cheryl. There's tons of resources in there, references and such.
Just a quick question from the chat for you, Shelley. Are the links to the video and stuff, they're all in your paper, correct?
Yep.
I believe so. I just didn't want to say something without confirming. Okay.
Yep. And this right here, this was kind of the end of the paper. Spatial reasoning skills. I'm going to hide my faces. Spatial reasoning skills are integral to success in math. Math can be a stepping stone to success and financial independence, as we all know. Having a good handle on spatial reasoning is relevant to all people, and not just women, but the other groups that I mentioned, especially right now, and especially in the US.
Just a huge thank you for all your research. It's already in the math practitioner, but so everyone who hasn't gotten a chance to read it yet, that's where it is. And thanks again. I found it very fascinating. It was great to think about as we were designing our fall classes and thinking about how to reach those students who can fall behind.
Excellent. Thank you.
If you are wondering where if you haven't gotten the newsletter, it should have been emailed out to you, but you can also link to it or get to the link on our ANN homepage. If you scroll down, you'll see the math practitioner, and there's a direct link to Shelley's research.
Where do you get the paper where the women were drawing? They had the object and they were drawing, there were dots.
That's isometric graph paper.
That's
isometric graph paper. You can, if you're belong to NCTM, they have actually an interactive isometric graph paper. There's a whole, EastCon actually paid for me to have a membership to NCTM so I could get to that resource. But You can draw with the lines. You can draw into the interactive desktop area. You can manipulate the. But if you just Google isometric graphics, you'll also that way. Get it with the dots. You can get it with the lines, grids on there too.
So why do they think that women don't have spatial reasoning skills? Is it because they don't go out in the world? They have to stay in the home. Most all over the world, they have to stay in the home to cook.
It's not even just in the home. I mean, who do you buy Legos for? Mostly boys. You know, Legos they've figured out with the elf things and the friends things. They figured out that girls want these things too. Who do you ask to help work on your car? Boys. Who gets a record set?
Also, this doesn't have anything to do with the world then. This has to do with the United States or Western countries because in all over the world, it's men who get to go out and scout, and they have to have a sense of direction. And whereas women, they go get the water from the well, they just keep doing the same thing. And I just was wondering where this person came up with these facts.
Well, it's definitely not biology. I mean, we know it's not biology. It's the experiences that are given to, you know, without going down too much of a road, that, you know, little boys from families with a lot of money get more opportunities like this, where these things are we're able to examine these things than girls, people of color, people of lower socioeconomic status. Just what we're exposing them to, and we can fix that through education.
I was wondering, what is the overlap between geometry and spatial reasoning, and are they the same thing or just a different name, or does geometry refer to some more formal thing, or is spatial reasoning the applied geometry? Like, what is the, I don't know. I'm not saying my question very well, but I hope you get it.
I understand your question. I'm going to defer because that's not an area of my expertise. Spatial reasoning, spatial awareness is the ability to manipulate a three-dimensional object in your head, either to manipulate it or to articulate it, open it, close it, turn it. To the degree that crosses over with geometry, that would be the answer.
Actually, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
When you say it's the ability to manipulate a 3D object in your head, but they were asking the women to look at a 3D object and turn it into a 2D object.
Right, and that whole process, there's I think it's ELPSA is the acronym. It's in my paper. How do you can't just walk up and say, what do you think this would look like if it was two-dimensional? There's a whole process of where you start, the steps. That's the composite figure and the nets, and it's a whole process. So what she was doing was one of the middle processes for teaching spatial reasoning, moving back and forth from 2D to 3D.
Because I've had loads of drawing training where I had to do realistic drawing, but I still can't look at an object and say, oh, that's the same as that one. And those are the tests that they give you. And I still can't do that. It's still like, I don't even know how.
Yep, it's a skill.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Shelley. Thank you for the research. Much appreciated. And, you know, so we have the ability to fund a couple research projects each year. We haven't always funded them because we haven't always received applications, right, Rebecca? So if you know anybody who's interested, or if you're interested, let us know. I think we're moving to close. A few of us will stick around if anyone has questions or comments, or if there's, and if anyone wants to, you know, at this point, not everyone's had a chance to speak. If there's something that you're interested in, have questions about or comments, suggestions for ANN, now's a good time.